Hello and welcome to In Transit. My guest today is journalist turned activist Ruchira Gupta. Her life changed after she was offered a film on human trafficking by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. The film, titled The Selling of Innocence, went on to win the prestigious Emmy Award, catapulting her to fame and featuring her in some of the world's top television shows like The Oprah Winfrey Show. And then life was just not the same for this enterprising lady from Kolkata. Welcome to the show, Ruchira.
Thank you, Sohaila. It's great to be here and meet you again.
I know, it's been a long time. You really keep very busy.
Yeah, traveling all the time.
Okay, Ruchira, like I said, you were a journalist initially. You started your career with a Kolkata-based newspaper, The Telegraph.
I was a journalist and my house was like a salon. So there were people who were writers, poets, politicians who were in the house all the time. My parents were Gandhians, they were socialists, they wanted to bring about change in society. So growing up, I saw some of the tallest intellectuals of India in my house. And I too wanted to participate in this intellectual change which was happening in India. And when I was 15, I decided I wanted to be a journalist. There was a new newspaper which was starting in Calcutta at that time called The Telegraph, edited by M.J. Akbar. I went and applied to him for a job, and he said, you can't while you're in school, you at least have to be in college. And as soon as I was done with college for 2 years and I got a BA pass degree, I went to him and I said, I've done half college and can I join? So he said yes, and I began working in the Telegraph. In the day I would work in, go to college, and in the evenings work in the Telegraph newspaper.
Great. You've always been interested in issue-based stories. Even when you were a child, you wanted to write about issues that affected the country, that affected the people of this country. You didn't want to do sort of bubblegum kind of journalism. So there were a couple of stories that you took up that turned out to be very controversial, especially the Babri Masjid one. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I've always believed that journalism was for a purpose, and that's why I wanted to be a journalist, because I wanted to write, I wanted to influence society, I wanted to make people think and make society better, and I genuinely believe that journalism could do so. So when I was working in Telegraph, I covered all the armed struggles of the Northeast, and I remember reporting on the Ulfa. I remember that at one point I was taken to meet one of these Alpha militant leaders in a camp inside Tripura, blindfolded and taken. This is just at the time when tea gardeners were being killed, etc. And I went to find out their point of view. So I was always trying to go a little further, a little deeper, to show the contradictions in society and why these contradictions were emerging. At one point I was transferred to Delhi and I began to cover all the political parties in Delhi. And that was also the time when Hindu fundamentalism was growing in India. And I was writing about it from the point of view of minorities, from the point of view of low caste people who were being left out of the Brahminical Hindu fold. I went, accompanied Murli Manohar Joshi on his trip to Kashmir to plant a flag there. And I saw the hollowness of this rhetoric. So for a few years I was following this, and I realized from the undercurrents and stories that I was following that this could be a very divisive thing for India, and it was potentially a very, very dangerous situation for India. So then I decided that I would go deeper into the story, and I actually followed L.K. Advani on his Rath Yatra, where he took a chariot from place to place, mustering support, asking people who were called car sevaks to come to Ayodhya, where this 19th century mosque was, to come and demolish the mosque. I was taking notes, but what happened was a real life-changing experience for me, because in our school of journalism we had been taught that a journalist must go on the spot and must not depend on secondary sources. So I decided to go inside the mosque. It was a really hot day, and I put a handkerchief on my head, a wet handkerchief on my head, and I went inside the mosque. The mosque was packed body to body with people, and when I went in, somebody thought I was a Muslim because I had a hanky on my head, and they decided to strangle me to death. So there were suddenly there were hands reaching out trying to strangle me and saying Muslim, 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 and I couldn't get the words out because I was choking. At the same time, these men who were supposed to be following some godly path by destroying this mosque were also molesting me. So on one hand there were hands which were groping my body, another which was trying to kill me. and I experienced issues which women experience in so many other ways right there and then, because I experienced the violence, I experienced the fear, I experienced the shame, I experienced the feeling of being violated. And I really thought I was moments away from death. And I kept trying to speak, but I couldn't speak. My shirt was torn off, and then there was somebody inside there who said, no, let's not kill her inside this place, because this is the Garbhagriha, the place that they said where Ram was born. And they said, no, let's pull her out. And they pulled me out, and there was a ditch around that mosque, and I was pulled into that ditch, and they were about to kill me when a person who had interviewed the day before, who was from Bihar, that's where I come from, and he said, no, she's not Muslim, she's a journalist, her name is Ruchira Gupta, I know her, she interviewed me yesterday. And he pulled me out. Anyway, the day ended, we drove back to Delhi, there was mayhem, there was chaos, houses were burning all around us, and I myself had been so close to death that there was a whole process inside me which was changing, and I spoke up about it. And that changed my life, because when I came back and I said that here were these leaders who were breaking Indian laws to just build up a fury to sort of build their party rather than thinking about India, I found that I was considered the bad person. People in Delhi began to ask me, where are your scratch marks? People in Delhi would ask me, how can a girl from a good family speak up like this? Do you worship any god? What kind of a person are you? There were rumors that were spread about me in Delhi, and they would keep coming to me. I would go into parties and people would walk away. So I actually faced the same things that women who are victims of domestic violence, women who are victims of stigma face. I faced exactly that on a bigger scale, at a national scale. The stigma, the discrimination, the character assassination, that the shame and the guilt was mine. And in fact, I then decided to appear in different courts to testify to what I had seen as an eyewitness. I appeared in the Bahari Tribunal, I appeared in the Liberhans Commission for Inquiry. And again, I found that there were lawyers who would ask me why I was speaking up. And the fact that I was speaking up was the shame, not the action of breaking a law. Committing a crime was not a shame, but a woman speaking about her body and what happens to her was the shame. So it was, I then began to realize what women face every day. When they are raped, when they are victims of incest, when they are victims of pedophilia, when they are victims of violence, how they are devalued. And that process then led me to writing more and more about women's issues and women's rights in a very patriarchal society.
Life-changing experience.
Absolutely. But it made me stronger, because I'm still testifying. And every time I speak up, I find that I have more strength.
Right. After this incident, I mean, you wrote a couple of other articles. You were still a print journalist, but then when did you decide to become when did you decide to work for BBC on television?
In fact, that very year, BBC offered me a research position for a documentary where they were doing on the RSS. Which is the mother organization of the BJP. And I then did this documentary called The Brotherhood about this organization, which is really the mother organization and has a lot of front organizations like the BJP, the Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, the Ban Bandhu Parishad, etc., the tribal welfare organization, the students organization, the political party. And we did this research. The documentary was very well received. It was shown on BBC. And that took me towards audiovisual, towards making documentaries for television. I just continued to be a journalist, and I was using common sense. And it was just replacing one medium for another to be a good journalist.
From print to the electronic medium.
From the print to the electronic medium.
And when were you offered this film, The Selling of Innocence?
See, then what happened was that I was researching another documentary in Nepal.